Good morning. Today is the third day of Tammuz, the day on which the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away 29 years ago. And I was kind of debating about what I should talk about today, whether it should be on the Parsha or not. There's a lot to say on both topics. One of the things that came to my mind, and maybe this is a little unknown to people, is that the Rebbe took himself very, very seriously. And what I mean by seriously is not that he expected people to respect him, but he took his work very seriously. And one of the signs of a person who takes himself seriously is that he takes his circumstances seriously. To put it another way, he definitely had the possibility of trying to mask the idiosyncrasies in his own upbringing. And the idiosyncrasies, one might say, is that he was brought up in Chabad, in Lubavitch. And why would it be an idiosyncrasy? Because he really was a person who wanted to change the entire Jewish world and then beyond. So when you come and you say, I'm one thing and I'm not something else, you're sort of like pushing off or a little bit of a rejection to other parts of the Jewish people that don't necessarily think that the date, for instance, that he spoke about, the 3rd of Tammuz, he spoke about it every year. He didn't know that he was going to pass away on that date, at least not openly. But he spoke about it because that day was important in the history of Chabad, the history of his family. And he didn't take it just as a circumstance of life. He took it as something that is essential. That's how he learned from his father. Everything that you do, everything that you are, whatever your particular history is, all those things are part of your divine service. They are part of your mission in life. And so you don't need to try to sort of like cut the corners, make yourself look what you're not. You need to bring yourself the way that you are with everything that you have, but treat it all as by divine providence. And that's what he did. And again, like I said, he spoke on various occasions, and he was very Chabad in his essence. He was very Lubavitch in his essence, and the things that he talked about. He spoke about many things that someone from my background, for instance, in the beginning, when I was 20 or 18, when I tried to listen to it, I couldn't connect with it. It was just too like idiosyncratic. It was too focused on what I thought was a particular part of the Jewish world. But as the years go by, what I feel more and more is that people connect to it, particularly because of those idiosyncrasies. Meaning that he churned, by taking everything in his life very seriously, he churned it all into divine service. And today, when people get to know Chabad, they get to know the Rebbe, they start reading his essays, they start reading his discourses, they actually really connect to all of these things that I used to think were very particular only to a certain group, a certain part of the Jewish people. So again, the lesson for me is that whatever your circumstances of life are, if you turn them into something that has divine meaning, then they will have divine meaning not just for you, but for all those around you, and everybody will be able to take something from that. With that, I'd like to turn to the 5th reading. And in the 5th reading of Korach, after everything is said and done, Moses is instructed by God to take staffs from each of the 12 tribes, and including the tribe of Levi, which will be represented by Aaron, and put the staffs in front of the Holy of Holies, and there will be a sign which tribe God chooses to be those who serve him. And we all know, on the following day, Moses came to the tent of the testimony, and behold, Aaron's staff for the house of Levi had blossomed. It gave forth blossoms, the flowers dropped off, and the staff sprouted buds, and then produced ripe almonds. Okay? So what do we have here? That within one night, the staff, which was obviously just some piece of wood, suddenly became like a branch of an almond tree, and overnight the flowers grew, the flowers fell off, the buds appeared, the buds of the fruit, and fully ripened fruit all appeared overnight. So on the face of it, this is just a miracle. But it's not that simple. Why is it not so simple? Because it turns out that the sages tell us that of all the trees in the world, there's many types of trees, and they each take a different amount of time to blossom and to give fruit. The almond tree is the quickest. In fact, the name of the almond in Hebrew, shaked, literally means quickness. It's named that way in Hebrew because of how fast the fruit appears. And the sages say from flowering until the fully ripened fruit, it only takes 21 days. Now, I don't know botanically if this is how it is today, but this is how it was in their time. We're speaking literally about how things worked by them. Why is this important? Because there is much more value, actually, to a miracle that is close to nature, or even a miracle that is entirely enveloped within nature, masked within nature, than a miracle that stands out. Why is that? Because the purpose of the world is not to lead a miraculous life by detaching oneself from nature, but rather by bringing what people call God's speed. Here it's the speed of it turning into ripened fruit, to bring that speed into nature. So naturally, the place that you would want the speed to appear is where it already is anyway. You just want it sped up a little bit more. So that's called a miracle that is enclosed within nature, and that has higher value than a miracle that uproots nature, that changes nature altogether, because we can't live in a world where nature is uprooted, where we can't count on gravity, where we can't count on the laws of nature being what they are. So, in fact, the choice of the almond demonstrates this very important principle. But let's take something a little bit more. Again, this is what we call the science in Torah. There's another thing that's related to this, which is that the sages give a whole list, not only of trees, but also of animals whose gestation period is the shortest. Of the unkosher animals, the shortest gestation period, they say, is the cat. It takes 52 days. Of the kosher animals, the fowl says that the shortest gestation period belongs to the chicken. And there's something very interesting here about the chicken and the almond, both of which are obviously kosher, that the fruit has the same shape. And this is actually a topic that a lot of people are not aware of, that by the shape of an egg, we have signs about whether the bird that laid the egg is kosher or not. In other words, what the sages say is that a kosher egg will always have like this, one side which is mildly bowl-like, it'll be a mild bowl, and one side which will be somewhat pointed. But if both sides are either too circular or both sides are pointed, then the bird that laid the egg is not kosher. Now there's a lot more to be discussed about this, but the interesting thing again is that the almond has the exact same shape. That one side is mildly circular and the other side is more pointed. So there's a lot to explore here, but what we're looking at is just saying that there is science in Torah, and the sages don't always look at science from the same point of view that a scientist would. And it actually gives, there actually is now a whole field of studying the form of eggs and what we can say about the type, classifying the birds that lay different shapes of eggs. But obviously the same thing would also be true about trees. Apparently that the more, I guess, rounded the fruit is, the longer it takes. The more pointed it is, maybe if we would take from the almond, it could be that we could theorize that the more pointed it is, the shorter it takes. But again, the main point is that what happens in the Torah and what is considered to be a higher revelation of godliness is when the godliness appears in what is already natural. It may speed it up a little, may do something else, but if it won't, but it doesn't uproot nature, but rather works with nature. So